that the rest of us are not doing for both injury, observation, diagnosis, rehab. Any comments there?
So yeah, this one's like really tricky. And I have, like, your viewers won't see it, but I have this like paper sitting in front of me. Essentially, it's like this one's a 2016 like International Olympic Committee consensus statement on load in sports and injury risk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it goes through and it talks about things that are considered internal loads and things that are considered external loads. So the internal loads are social stress, sleeping habits, diet, other healthcare factors, other risk factors, family history, etc. And the external loading is like all the physical stress with our sport, the dosage, the intensity, the volume, the recovery, etc. And like it all matters for the athlete and their ability to adapt. When we come down to like the absolute significant difference between why professional athletes can tolerate more, it is genetic. Like discrediting their work ethic or discrediting their skill set or discrediting what they do. But from my experience, most of the time in our space, the professional athletes, they give the worst advice because they don't understand really why it works for them or how they're good at what they do. They just like do it, right? And the difference that these papers would validate is that those athletes literally can tolerate physical stress than other people can. And that's a connective tissue thing. Maybe that got built a little for that person, but what really differentiates the playing field with the most elite and the average athlete is for sure something that is without, outside of the control of the individual, which I think that's like very maybe un-American, and people are like, oh, that's not true. Like, you want, and I think that's cute and whatever, but I think that's naive as hell too. Like, because like examples like Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, those athletes have been killing it since they were kids. They didn't do shit different than someone else. They just were better, just like physically better. Same thing for the clients. The athletes that are training the hardest can do more just because they can. And so I think it's really maybe important for everyone else to appreciate that, because if you try and train like them, you're going to get hurt. And that's the downside of that. Is I talk to all the people who work with pro athletes that don't give good suggestions and they get hurt because that athlete doesn't really know. In their defense, they don't really know how much a normal person can tolerate, but their prescriptions tend to be over the top, a lot of times. And that's not to say all of them, but that's pretty common in all sports.
No, I think that is the hard truth, that some of us are just born with gifts that the rest of us don't have. I remember many years ago hearing some comment by Dave Graham, and Dave Graham was being asked about how he managed to keep pushing the hard bouldering envelope for so long. And I think one of the things he said, which I thought was really interesting, he said he's taught himself to stay on the verge of injury, but not get injured. So I think it's probably a combination of just genetics and having the body capacity, the connective tissue, and maybe just some ESP, where he's able to really understand what his body is going through and push until he cannot push anymore and then stop there. And
I think maybe a really important thing too is everyone wants to and professional athletes work their ass off, right? But so does like the weekend warrior. Like I know so many athletes that care so much about climbing, they work their ass off too. And the pro athlete, just because they have more time, they're doing more, their effort matters more. That's not the case. Like there's a lot of people that put in a lot of good effort and try really hard and do all the right things, and they just will not get the same response as the elite athlete.
True.
And that's just like kind of a hard reality of our world, And so like I have, maybe because I'm 42 years old and I'm not a professional athlete and have a job, like that doesn't hurt my feelings really. But for young kids, maybe I could see how that would kind of a stamp down on your thunder, right? And that doesn't mean that you don't want to keep pursuing your dreams and your goals, whatever. It's like, but being realistic about it, I think is also, a very helpful thing for just the average person.
Tyler, what are some of those most common things you see that concern you, where you feel, these are things that athletes should not be doing? You just keep seeing the same things over and over again. And maybe some things that you feel they should actually start doing, and they seem resistance to change?
Ooh, climbing world's super resistant to change. I don't know if there's like things that I would say are for sure hard they should stop doing, because we don't have that much evidence to support anything in rock climbing, really. You know, there's very low quality research and quantity of research, and that will change over time, of course. I would say maybe the most risky behaviors are really just climbing volume, just like doing too much too often. That will certainly stale progress. That will certainly increase injury risk. But that's not a single thing, but that's a mix of all the things. I would say probably the most useless thing that climbers do is a lot of calisthenic types of exercise stuff, like body weight stuff. Like just naturally climbers are strong, like their upper bodies are strong, stuff. And so they're naturally good at other things. And so one of the rabbit holes that we get ourselves into that other sports did too, but now they have the research to say don't do that, but climbers don't have that, is they try and replicate movements or positions or things that look like rock climbing things, and they do them off the wall. From like the ability to adapt and get something from that, we can say that's pretty much a waste of your time. Like that's not strength training. That's not your sport. That's not end range stretching. That's just kind of a skills acquisition for something that you hope transfers to your sport. But there's very little guarantee that the coordination of something that's not your sport will actually transfer to your sport, right? And so when it comes to strength training, the recruitment, the tendon stiffness changes, those are the things that we can say pretty confidently, those should transfer to our sport. But we still have to practice our sport. But there's a lot of like the crossover between gymnastics is beautiful and strong and rock climbing is beautiful and strong, and we love each